The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with anticipation. Representatives from dozens of alien species crowded the space station, their voices rising in sharp, discordant tones. Tension crackled in the air as another heated debate erupted. Captain Mira Velasquez sat in the back row, tapping her pen nervously against the table, listening to the sharp arguments volleying back and forth. The issue at hand was the Galactic Arms Limitation Treaty, an agreement that had, until now, ensured a relative peace among the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. It had been in place for centuries, an attempt to prevent full-scale war by restricting the development and distribution of dangerous weapons. Yet, despite its success, there had been recent breaches, some more blatant than others. The Varlic Empire, an avian species known for their sharp talons and even sharper legal minds, had been the most vocal in accusing humanity of violating the treaty. Their representative, Ambassador Kalora, stood now at the podium, wings flared in a gesture of authority, as her sharp beak clicked with frustration. "The humans have done it again," Kalora declared, her voice echoing through the chamber. "And this time, the evidence is undeniable." A holographic display flickered to life beside her, showing grainy footage from a recent military conflict between humans and a rival faction in a far-off system. The footage, captured by a neutral observer, was meant to demonstrate human violations of the treaty. What it showed, however, was more absurd than alarming. One human soldier, armed with nothing more than a large spoon, was seen battering an enemy soldier into submission. Another clip revealed a human using a broken chair leg as a makeshift spear to impale a retreating alien soldier. The last footage was the most baffling, an individual using an inflatable beach ball to knock out a combat drone mid-flight. The entire council fell silent. Captain Velasquez, sitting at the human delegation table, swallowed hard. She glanced nervously at the display. The soldiers in the video had been part of a training exercise on Earth, testing creative combat strategies. To the untrained eye, it was a display of utter chaos. She could only imagine how the galactic community was interpreting it. Ambassador Kalora clicked her beak again, signaling for the footage to pause. "This is a clear violation of the Arms Limitation Treaty. These methods cannot be allowed. If we let humanity continue to flaunt these creative tactics, the galaxy will be plunged into chaos. They are using anything as a weapon. This cannot be tolerated." A murmur of agreement rippled through the council, especially from the more conservative members. The Thraxi, a race of insectoids with exoskeletal armor and no sense of humor, clicked their mandibles in disapproval. The Irikoth, a species of plant-based life forms, simply shook their vines, as if disturbed by the very idea that something as mundane as a spoon could become an instrument of war. Captain Velasquez stood up, her uniform sharply pressed, her face calm but her hands tense by her side. She had been dreading this moment, but now it was here. Her voice was steady as she addressed the council. "I'm Captain Mira Velasquez, Ambassador for Earth," she said, her tone measured, "and I'll be the first to admit that humanity has a unique approach to warfare. But I can assure you, we are not violating the spirit of the treaty. We are simply flexible." The room was silent as she let her words hang in the air. She could feel the skeptical gazes of dozens of alien eyes upon her, scrutinizing her every move. "What I mean is this," she continued, taking a deep breath. "Humanity's greatest strength lies not in our weapons, but in our adaptability. The footage you saw is from a series of military exercises designed to encourage soldiers to think beyond traditional tactics. We're not obsessed with building bigger and deadlier weapons. We're focused on finding any tool at our disposal to overcome an enemy. A spoon, a broken chair, a beach ball. They're just tools." Kalora's eyes narrowed. "Tools? You call them weapons?" Velasquez nodded. "In a way, yes. But humanity doesn't limit itself to conventional thinking. When faced with overwhelming odds, we don't just fight, we improvise. It's why we've survived as long as we have." A few council members seemed to understand her point, their expressions softening slightly. The Irikoth, in particular, emitted a low, harmonious sound that could have been a thoughtful hum. But Kalora wasn't done. "Then explain this," she said, gesturing to another hologram that appeared beside her. This time, it showed humans using fire extinguishers to disable enemy mechs. Another image showed a human soldier firing a paint gun at a group of advancing aliens, causing them to retreat in confusion. Is this what you call survival? Using nonsense to fight a war? Velasquez's eyes flashed, but she remained calm. It's not nonsense. It's resourcefulness. It's humanity's way. And I believe it's one of the reasons we've earned our place in this council. The Varlic ambassador clicked her beak, clearly displeased, but she didn't respond immediately. The silence in the chamber was deafening, until the voice of the council president, a member of the aquatic Rhythic species, finally broke through. Captain Velasquez, the president began, his voice low and rumbling, your arguments are unorthodox. But we need to see more before we can make a final decision. A team will be sent to Earth to observe your tactics firsthand. If what you claim is true, then perhaps we have misunderstood humanity's approach to combat. Velasquez nodded, feeling the weight of the council's decision on her shoulders. The room was still, the judgment hanging in the air like a heavy fog. As the session was adjourned, Velasquez couldn't shake the feeling that this investigation would either confirm humanity's ingenuity or be the galaxy's undoing. But one thing was certain, the council was about to find out just how anything could be turned into a weapon. The human delegation's transport ship settled gently on the landing pad at the edge of a sprawling military base in the New Mexico desert. The sun blazed overhead, casting long shadows across the barren landscape. Ambassador Calora, flanked by a team of skeptical alien representatives, stepped down onto the tarmac, their eyes scanning the dry, dusty terrain. Welcome to Earth, Captain Mira Velasquez said, her voice steady but tinged with a hint of pride. She gestured toward the base behind her, where soldiers were bustling around, preparing for a series of training exercises. This is one of our premier military facilities. You'll get a first-hand look at how we approach warfare. Calora's sharp beak twitched in a mixture of disdain and curiosity. Her species was accustomed to precision, to the clean, ordered rituals of war. What they had seen in the council chamber, humans wielding beach balls and fire extinguishers as weapons, was a concept so foreign to them, they couldn't fathom it. But now, on the ground, they would witness it in action. Is this where you train your soldiers to fight? Calora asked, clearly unimpressed by the surrounding environment. Among other places, Velasquez replied with a smile. You'll find that our training methods are unorthodox, but effective. The aliens' expressions were a mix of skepticism and concern as they followed the captain through the base. Along the way, they passed various human soldiers in the midst of their drills. One group was practicing a hand-to-hand combat scenario, while another was testing new camouflage technology. But it wasn't until they reached the designated training area that the true madness began to unfold. Here we go, Velasquez said, gesturing to the sprawling field ahead of them. In the center of the field, two teams of soldiers were in the middle of a mock battle. They were armed, not with standard rifles or energy weapons, but with an assortment of bizarre objects. A tennis racket, a set of garden tools, and a large stack of mattresses. Calora's wings fluttered in confusion. What is this? Battlefield adaptation, Velasquez replied simply. We teach our soldiers to improvise with whatever they can find. A weapon is just a tool in the right hands. The soldiers, clearly used to this kind of training, moved with surprising precision despite their unconventional gear. One soldier swung a tennis racket with deadly accuracy, sending an inflatable drone careening into the air. Another soldier wielded a garden rake, using it to trip an opponent who was attempting to charge with a large foam bat. The strangest moment came when a soldier used a mattress to shield against a barrage of water balloons, then hurled the mattress like a projectile, knocking several others off their feet. Calora's jaw hung open, and the other alien representatives looked utterly baffled. This is madness, one of the Thraxi muttered under his breath, his many eyes blinking rapidly in confusion. Velasquez couldn't help but chuckle at the reaction. To us, it's just another day at the office. The alien delegation watched in stunned silence as the battle raged on. For a few moments, it seemed as though the humans were simply playing a chaotic game of tag. But then, as the soldiers began to use more and more of the environment around them, turning trees into cover, using discarded crates as shields, it became apparent that they were applying serious tactics beneath the absurdity. The key isn't in the weapon itself, Velasquez explained, it's in the adaptability, the ability to turn the environment to your advantage. You see, a soldier who knows how to use anything around them can survive in situations where others would fail. Kalora's expression softened just a fraction. So you're telling me that a garden rake can be more effective than a plasma rifle? Velasquez smiled. In the right hands, anything can be a weapon. As the exercise wound down, Kalora approached one of the human soldiers, who had been using a large rubber mallet to subdue an opponent. Explain this to me, she demanded, her voice a mix of disbelief and curiosity. The soldier, grinning beneath his helmet, shrugged. It's all about thinking outside the box, ma'am. If it works, it works. The Varlic envoy clicked her beak loudly, clearly still unconvinced. This is nothing but foolishness. Or, Velasquez said with a smirk, it's the future of combat. The alien delegation exchanged uneasy glances. The Varlic envoy turned to Velasquez, her wings twitching with a hint of frustration. We will see if this strategy is as effective in real battle situations. Velasquez nodded. You'll see it soon enough. Welcome to Earth. I hope you're ready for the madness. The alien delegation had seen the humans' military tactics up close, and the skepticism still lingered, but the seed of doubt had been planted. It was clear that humanity's unorthodox methods were not just bizarre. They were effective in ways the galactic community had yet to comprehend. The council representatives had barely finished their tour of the base before a distress signal interrupted their observations. A rogue alien faction, the Tsar, had launched an unexpected raid on a nearby space station. The Varlic envoy's eyes flared with alarm as the news spread through the crowd. Captain Velasquez remained calm, though she felt a sense of urgency in her gut. Captain Velasquez, Kalora said sharply, I hope you're not suggesting your unconventional tactics are suitable for something as serious as this. I'm suggesting nothing, Velasquez replied, standing tall. But if you're serious about seeing how humans handle a real combat situation, you're about to get your wish. The human delegation hurried back to the transport, the alien representatives following reluctantly. As the shuttle sped through Earth's atmosphere toward the battleground, Velasquez's mind raced. The Tsar were notorious for their advanced weaponry, and their tactics were brutal and efficient. But they had never faced humanity's particular brand of ingenuity. Minutes later, the shuttle touched down on the grounds of a military complex on the edge of an urban battlefield, just outside a human spaceport that had been under siege. The sounds of distant explosions and blaster fire echoed in the background as Velasquez ushered the alien delegation out. The Tsar had already begun their assault, taking the high ground with well-positioned snipers and heavy artillery. What do you plan to do? Kalora asked, her voice tight with disbelief. Velasquez smiled grimly. We adapt. The humans wasted no time. Velasquez immediately assigned the aliens a spot near a command center while the soldiers began scouring the environment for anything that could be used to fight back. A few minutes passed before the first strange weapon emerged. A group of soldiers emerged from the building with a large industrial fan, which they wheeled toward a nearby barricade. They can't possibly be using that, Kalora muttered under her breath, watching in stunned silence. But she was proven wrong. As the Tsar snipers took aim from the roof of a distant building, the fan whirred to life, blowing a powerful stream of air toward them. The wind was strong enough to knock the Tsar off balance, their precision shots missing by wide margins. One soldier, using a high-powered water gun, strafed the edge of the building, forcing the snipers to retreat in confusion. Where did you get that equipment? Kalora demanded. From the supply room, Velasquez replied casually. You'd be surprised what's lying around when you know where to look. More soldiers, now equipped with fire extinguishers, dashed forward, using them to blind an advancing group of Tsar soldiers. As the alien attackers floundered, one human soldier hurled a large trash can at them, catching 3 of the Tsar soldiers off guard and knocking them to the ground. This "This is ridiculous," one of the Thraxi murmured, his mandibles twitching in disbelief. "You're fighting an army with garbage." Velasquez turned to face him, her eyes steely. "It's not the weapon, it's the creativity behind it. These soldiers are trained to think under pressure, to use whatever they can find. That's why we survive." The battle raged on, the humans continuing to adapt in ways that defied all logic. They turned a forklift into a mobile barricade, using it to block incoming fire while they set up a makeshift perimeter. One soldier even used an old bicycle to launch himself into the air, throwing a massive bundle of rope over a group of Tsar soldiers, and snaring them as they tried to advance. Kalora was watching now with wide eyes, her wings twitching nervously. For the first time, she saw the potential in humanity's chaotic approach. The Tsar were powerful, but they were predictable. Humans, on the other hand, were unpredictable, and that unpredictability was proving to be their greatest weapon. "You're right," Kalora admitted reluctantly. "Your people can adapt. This is unlike anything we've seen before." As the battle finally began to turn in humanity's favor, Velasquez allowed herself a small smile. The Tsar were retreating, forced to abandon their carefully planned assault in the face of overwhelming absurdity. "You've seen it for yourself," Velasquez said. "In war, survival is about more than firepower. It's about adapting, using your environment, and thinking outside the box. That's what makes humanity dangerous." Kalora, though still shaken by the madness of the battle, gave a respectful nod. "I've never seen anything like this. Welcome to Earth," Velasquez said with a grin, "where anything can be a weapon." The Tsar forces had retreated, but the victory was far from sweet. The battle left the city in ruins, with smoldering buildings and streets littered with debris. The alien delegation stood at the edge of the battlefield, stunned into silence. Despite the unorthodox tactics humanity had used, the result was undeniable: humans had won. Captain Velasquez surveyed the wreckage, her mind already working through the next steps. The shuttle had arrived to take them back to the council station, but Velasquez wasn't ready to leave just yet. She turned to Kalora, who was watching the scene with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. "You see now, Ambassador, humanity's greatest weapon is its adaptability. When we face the impossible, we don't just fight back. We think our way through it," Velasquez said, her tone steady. Kalora's wings twitched nervously, still processing the absurdity she had witnessed. "I can hardly believe what I saw. How do you train your soldiers to think this way?" "We don't train them to think like everyone else," Velasquez replied with a shrug. "We teach them to think in the moment, to see the environment as a toolbox, not a battlefield. We don't just rely on weapons. We rely on everything." As the last remnants of the Tsar forces retreated, Velasquez's soldiers began to clear the area. The humans weren't celebrating their victory with traditional cheers or fanfare. Instead, they got straight to work, gathering supplies and checking for any remaining threats. A few soldiers were already laughing as they joked about using a broken vending machine as a new weapon. Kalora looked at Velasquez, her expression softening. "I have to admit, I didn't expect this. Your people, you really do turn anything into a weapon, don't you?" "That's the idea," Velasquez said with a grin. "We don't have the luxury of endless resources or advanced technology like the other species. But we've always made do. In the end, it's not about what we have, it's what we do with it." The Thraxi, still processing the chaotic brilliance of the battle, spoke up. "Your tactics are unpredictable, but they work." "That's the beauty of it," Velasquez replied. "The enemy doesn't know what's coming next. And neither do we sometimes. But that's what keeps us alive." Kalora let out a soft sigh, her feathers ruffling in a rare sign of concession. "I can't deny it. I came here to prove that humanity was a threat to the galaxy. But now I'm not so sure. I think I've been wrong." "You weren't entirely wrong," Velasquez said. "Humanity is unpredictable. But that's also why we're an asset, not a liability." As the last of the Tsar retreated into the distance, the human soldiers began to gather in a circle around their captain. One soldier, holding a large metal rod, raised it in a mock salute. "Captain Velasquez," He called, "Does this count as an official weapon now?" Velasquez chuckled. "Absolutely. It's a classic example of battlefield improvisation." The soldiers laughed, the tension finally breaking as they celebrated their victory in their own quirky way. Calora stood in silence for a moment, her sharp eyes scanning the human soldiers. She couldn't help but be impressed, even if it went against everything her species believed in. The Tsar might have had superior firepower, but humanity's creativity had won the day. "So, what happens now?" Calora asked, turning back to Velasquez. "We go back to the council," Velasquez said, her tone shifting. "But this time it's different. You've seen what humanity can do. You've seen what anything can be turned into a weapon." Calora looked at the humans around her, each one carrying some strange, makeshift tool or weapon, and nodded slowly. "I think the galaxy will be a little different after this. You've proven that. Humanity is unpredictable, but perhaps that's exactly what the galaxy needs." Velasquez smiled. "You're starting to understand. Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. It's a place where anything can be a weapon, and everything can be turned into a victory,